Hi there, welcome back to the Geneva Blues studio, where today I want to do a little video mostly about tools, basically. I've got to stop saying basically, apparently I say that a lot in my videos and on the podcast. Firstly, a wrist check. I'm wearing my Tudor Black Bay Harrods Limited Edition. The reason I'm wearing this is because I have decided to sell it. As much as I love it, it is my favorite modern day Tudor, and I know I'm going to regret selling it, but I need to sell something. I need to consolidate a little. I've got to fund some more incomings, so this is the one that's got to go basically. And I do like it, but I've got a lot of use out of my Pelagos Tudor for the last 7 or 8 years. It's a rock solid watch. It's served me very well, and I'll be keeping that. Obviously, I have another one of those for sale, but this Harrods it's an awesome watch. The color of the bezel, obviously the gold, the gilt on the dial, snowflake hands. It's a great combo. Um, so yeah, I'd be sorry to see that go, but yeah, you got to do what you got to do. You'll probably see I've changed the angle a little bit compared to the previous YouTube videos. It's because I wanted to expose this little area here, which is part of my workbench. It's a very, very small workbench. It's not a proper workshop. And now my watchmaking mates will see what I mean when I talk about not having a proper workshop. This is on my desk. This is where I normally sit all day, or when I'm in my office doing my work. I have another little raised section here with some other bits and pieces and photography gear. This is my tool section, and I want to just demonstrate later on some stuff on there. So I've got firstly some tweezers. When you talk about watchmaking tweezers, there's at least a dozen different types of tweezers, different types of material I use for tweezers. I want to talk about today about the basic ones, which is either steel, nickel, and brass tweezers. There's plastic tweezers, mostly for batteries, wooden end tweezers for fragile parts and batteries as well. There's Teflon tipped tweezers. There are ceramic tipped tweezers, very hard parts. There's a bunch of different steel alloy tweezers, and as well for stainless and nickel and brass, you get a lot of different mixes. When I did my training at Audemars Piguet, we were primarily using nickel or brass tweezers, and that was just because of the parts that we manipulated, the screws and everything, the bridges. With high-end watches, you want the minimum number of scratches possible when you're manipulating parts. Brass is one of the softest ones. Nickel is quite soft as well. So I've got 3 pairs here from different manufacturers. It's an Rubis manufacturer in Switzerland of steel tweezers. Then I have the nickel tweezers, which I used doing my training from Horotech. And then I have a pair of brass tweezers, which are from Dumont. Dumont, which one of the best tweez makers in Switzerland. Bergeon stock tweezers from, I think, all of these. Maybe not the Rubis, that's an old brand. Doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. Or if it does, it's very specialized. But Dumont and Horotech definitely, and their own brand, or Bergeon as well. Just as a different anecdote, or just to get an idea, steel tweezers, they have this, obviously they're very hard material. We've got steel's just a mixture of carbon, manganese, and silicon, standard steel. Then you've got stainless steel, which these would be, which is the same plus chromium. And then you also have ones with chromium, another stainless, surgical stainless, which is steel, carbon, manganese, and silicon with molybdenum and vanadium added to the mix, as well as chromium for the stainless steel. Stainless steel tweezers, you will tell from the sound they make as well. Quite a different, just a standard steel clinky noise basically. And then nickel, a much softer tweezers, and therefore softer sound. Brass, softer again, very, very soft material. I like these because, as well as being easy to, or not damaging any parts, softer tweezers. They're very easy to shape. They will bend out of shape quicker as well. But if you get used to using them properly and being sort of not too heavy-handed, they'll last for a fair while after each sharpening or shaping. And that's where the files come in. I have a bunch of different files as well. I've got a box of files here, but I've just taken one out, which is a small file. I don't even know what grade it is. It's but when you talk watchmaking files, they're obviously they're scaled down. There's about 6 or 7 different grades of file as well. That's a pretty standard one. And often to shape a pair of tweezers, especially brass or bronze, it's quite easy with a file, just with this action here, basically. I'm going to show you. You're basically doing the end straight on the end, perpendicular to the file, and then the sides as well. I'm not taking much metal off at this point because it's waving around in the air, but that's basically how you shape tweezers. When you shape the end, sounds pretty horrible, but if it's properly held on a workbench, you will have burrs on the inside of your tips, and that's where you just take the file like that and to get a perfect little finish. That it's going to be parallel inside because you're filing both tips parallel. You can also finish them on little stones. I have two different stones of different grades here. Emery stones, whatever you call them. Same again. Get that perfect finish. And then if you want a really polished finish, you do it on a smoother stone. Bad on the ears, but anyway. So you got what I'm talking about. That's the tweezers. That's the bronze tweezers. Brass tweezers. Bronze and brass, I always get them mixed up. Even in French, I used to get them mixed up. I actually stock a bunch of tweezers. Not a great deal, but I do have brass tweezers from Bergeon. They come in a packet like this, very similar to that. These are Bergeon brand tweezers. I'm not even going to get them out of the packet because it's too late. I already have. But with this one, you can see that they tarnish very quickly because they are brass. They're anti-magnetic, brass and nickel, which is another reason to use them. And but they're not stainless steel. They're not any corrosive. They do take up a very, very light surface oxidization when you handle them, which is why you can see this maybe with the light. There's bits of smudges on there. That's a brand new pair of tweezers I've never used. And so that's just to demonstrate. This is the new packet with the light. Hopefully you can see the shine on those. These are available from Bergeon and watch tool resellers. The prices vary greatly, and I try to keep things real. I don't make much of a margin on tweezers or any of the other Bergeon tools I sell, but they're pretty much the cheapest in the country. For these tools, for example, these brass tweezers, I'm not sure of the number. I think it's 7423. If you put that in the Bergeon website, you'll find the tweezers. When they are new, now I've said I'm not going to take it out, I'm going to take it out. Very, very sharp. So these will bend quite quickly if you're using them a lot. But again, as I said, very easy to shape again and get back to a optimum pointiness. They're actually polished on the inside as well. When they come from the factory, they're polished on the inside of the tips, so you won't be marking any parts or bridges or screws with those tweezers. They're so soft. They're beautiful tweezers and easy to sharpen, basically. So that's what I have there. I sell those for $85 Australian, which is quite cheap. It sounds expensive for a small pair of tweezers. A lot goes into the manufacturing them, of course. If you want to make them wider here, you basically hold this and bend this a little bit. Not pulling it apart like this, because they will break. But if you can hold this part here, bend each one a little tiny bit, and then to squeeze them back together, you basically hold this together and bend this. It's hard to explain, but that's how you keep them in optimum shape. These files, I want to talk about the files as well. This is what I use to sharpen tweezers, to shape tweezers. Standard watchmaker files. They also have, we also have escapement files, or lime d'échappement, or escapement files, which are tiny files. I have, for example, 10 of them in here. I've talked about them before for doing anglage. You can also use those to shape your tweezers on a microscopic level. Obviously, you use that with your loupe, so you can see what you're doing to get the right shape on the top of your tweezers, whether square or rounded or pointy, whatever your preference is. You can shape them quite easily. If you don't get too carried away and take too much material off, because you'll soon end up with a pair of tweezers this long, which I've seen sometimes in factories, and especially with apprentices who are not used to it, or you're trying to get the perfect shape, perfect, and it gets shorter and shorter because it's a very soft material. Before you know it, they can get quite short. So don't abuse them, but if you treat them right, they'll last you a long time. I've got probably 50 pairs of tweezers easy, in all different materials, not counting the new ones I stock. I've got these and another. I've got also spring bar tweezers. But the little files, getting back to those, they cost anywhere between 10 and 37 Swiss francs each on the Bergeon website, which is $15 to $60 a pop. For these the little Bergeon files. Actually, they're made by Valorbe, a big file factory in Valorbe, which I've mentioned on the podcast. It's a place where a few different brands, or there's files that are sold under a few different brands, are made in Valorbe, which is not far from the Vallée de Joux, where I worked. It's actually very close to my house too in Switzerland, Valorbe, where they make the files. So they're kind of expensive as well. It's nice to have a couple of them, but you can get cheap versions in hobby shops. It's the best place to buy them. Obviously, in your Bunnings and places like that, you'll have a very, very cheap version, which is not great, and they break easily. This is obviously a brittle material, so but the best ones, obviously, from Valorbe through Bergeon. That's pretty much it. That's for a start. I just wanted to explain those different types of tweezers. I've had a few requests, people talking about tweezers. That's the tweezers we have. Any more questions? Let me know. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. I'm trying a new setup on this camera. I'm using some tips which a guy called Matt Parker, I think, suggested to get better YouTube videos. As you know, I started pretty basic. I'm still very, very basic. I'm keeping the standard pretty low, so I can improve on it pretty easily, really. So I've got a few tips from Matt Parker, who also suggested them to a few other big YouTubers. And yeah, I'm going to see how it goes, basically. I'll do a few more of these. Let me know in the comments what you think. My massive number of subscribers, 60 subscribers. Thank you all very much. Hope you like this one. Let me know, and I'll do some more tooling ones later on. Cheers.